Hi, and welcome to 15-Minute Consulting Best Practices. I'm David A. Fields. Maria Isabel is under the weather today, so I'll be operating alone today. Most of you know the drill, but for anyone who's new, this is very straightforward. You ask questions, and we, or today just me, I answer them. And so please type your questions into the comments. And in fact, before Deidre pulls up the first question that came into our inbox, please tell me, or in the comment section, like what's the one thing that's most on your mind today? Just go ahead and type that into the comments. And that way we'll see it and actually make sure I've got the comments up here. Hi, John. Hi, Graham. Excellent. Love to see both sides of the Atlantic represented already. So type what's on your mind. And Deidre, what came in? So let's see. A question from Edith. A client canceled a project midstream. Okay, that bites. It wasn't going well, but we let them know up front there was risk. We also told them costs would be incurred. Now they're balking at the 50% of fees we're charging for work we actually did. During our conversation, they said they would get their lawyers involved. How should we have handled that conversation? All right. We've got canceled project. We told them there were risks and that there would be costs incurred, and now they're balking and there are lawyers involved. That's not awesome. Obviously, I wasn't part of the conversation, so I don't know exactly what happened. However, it definitely sounds like it became pretty confrontational. Anytime clients are threatening to bring in attorneys, that's not a good sign. So let's talk about how to handle these types of conversations in general. And first, this is incredibly important. This may be the one takeaway for today, which is you always start by empathizing with the client and their position. Okay, rather than becoming defensive, become understanding. You want to say something like, it's always really disappointing in your shoes when a project doesn't work out, and when a project doesn't work out, and you've incurred costs. That really bites. I mean, like that's the worst of all worlds. So I'm sorry you're in that position because that's just not fun, right? You want to say something like that. You'll use your own words. You'll adapt to the specific situation. But the point is to empathize and agree with the client. You want to be on their side. You want to be their partner, not their adversary. Now, of course, you want to do that without being condescending or paternalizing, which I'm sure everyone listening can do, right? You can be on their side of the table without being paternalizing. And then once you're on the same side of the table, as it were, once you're partners and it comes time to discuss the costs and say, well, look, we've incurred 50% of the fees already. And they're like, wait, what? You haven't done anything. You were supposed to do this whole, survey. You haven't even interviewed anybody yet. Right? You want, in that case, you want to keep it at a very high level. You might say, look, roughly 50% of the project is just set up. 25% is the actual interviews, the survey we're going to do, and call it 25% is synthesizing the interviews and making recommendations. And that's about as deep as you want to go. You definitely don't want to get dragged down into the task level. Well, we did this task and that task, and you don't want to get dragged down to hourly. We spent this many hours, right? None of that. That's all. There's no win in there. Just talking really broad sweeps. So I don't know if Edith is here today, but it's a tough situation. It's really easy to become defensive or to try to prove that your position is right. And that's just not the direction to go in. So those are my thoughts. Normally I would ask Maria Isabel if she has something else to add, which she probably would. But if you have something else to add, if you're listening, you're like, here's my thoughts, type them in on the comments. That'd be great. John has a question. How do I get my lower level contacts to get us in front of higher level decision makers faster? That's a great question, John. So let's just jump on that. When you're discussing a challenge with a contact, they say, look, our supply chain organization is totally broken. It just needs to be reorganized, and I don't think we have the wherewithal to do it. Right? That's your context saying something like that, as if anybody says anything quite that directly. And the your question back to them is, again, wow, you're probably right, and describe it right, and you talk with them. You say, okay, who can actually make this change? And you say, well, I can't, but my boss's boss can. I mean, they're the ones really in charge. Then your next request is to broker an introduction just to their boss. You say, all right, well, look, the way forward is we have to move our way up the chain to help you look good and help you enjoy your work more and make the whole organization succeed. So what do you think about you brokering conversation between you and me and your boss? And let's just have a discussion. That will just make you look better and hopefully make us look better, and we'll go from there. Easy as that. You just ask them to introduce you. So hopefully, John, does that answer your question? If yes, good. If no, let me know. What else? I know there's some other folks here. Just let me know what the biggest thing is on your mind today. And Deidre, what else do we have in the magic bag of questions? Question from Benjamin. I have a client I've worked with before, but now there are new people on the team. I don't know if that's his team or the client's team. For a variety of reasons, the new people are asking me to, it's client team. For a variety of reasons, the new people are asking me to break down my proposal into the cost for each piece. How far down should I go in breaking down the fees? What's the right level of detail to provide? Got it. Okay. Existing client, new people sound like they come from procurement or something, and they're like, all right, we need to know how much each thing is. Or maybe there's new people in and they're a little bit skeptical, or they're feeling budget pressure and they want to know, okay, what does each piece cost? So how far do you go down? Our advice is typically that you can break out anything that you already offered separately. Meaning, presumably, you offered alternatives, and you said alternative one is here's the project, and alternative two we layer on, X, Y, and Z, and alternative three you get X, Y, and Z, and also alpha, beta, and gamma. So, since you already broke those out, you can say, well, these pieces that we already broke out are, here's the fee. Incremental fee is a bundle for all of them. So anything that you would legitimately offer separately as a separate project, you can say, here's what this kind of project typically costs. But you don't break it down below that. So you don't break it down into sub pieces. Here's the cost of us conducting interviews. If in fact you would never offer just conducting interviews on its own. There's no price for that because we don't offer that. And they may try to push you. I see, Raul, you're saying procurement drives you crazy. Yeah, you and a lot of folks. Procurement, though, they're not inherently evil. It just seems that way at times. And so you want to make friends with them and figure out, how can we both be successful? How do I help you get what you need? While also understanding there's some things you're asking for that I can't give you. I can't give you the cost of each line item because that's not how we do things. We don't offer those line items separately. Okay. And also, by the way, if I'm giving you individual pieces that we do offer separately, those will add up to more than the fee for this project because a project is bundled. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's, John is asking, what if they ask for a proposal first? This is going back to the other folks. Well, if they can't make the decision, then what's the use of them getting a proposal? So let's go back to this person who says, oh, the supply chain organization is a mess. And you're like, all right, well, let's talk with the powers that be. And they say, well, give me a proposal. My response would be, I don't, that wouldn't be helpful for you or for me. We don't even know what we're proposing against. We don't know what the decision makers' view of success looks like. We don't know what their desired outcomes are and their concerns. And as a result, we would just be building a proposal that's, potentially headed in the wrong direction, and that doesn't make you look good. So let's do our due diligence. Let's have the conversation with them, the people who are going to be judging success, and then we can jointly, collaboratively create a proposal that will make you look successful. Okay. So that's where I would go with that. Graham, top of mind, how to decide where to focus my time on the different macro level opportunities, increasing effectiveness of IT, better use of generative AI. Yeah, well, that's good, right? How do you best use your time? How do you use it most effectively? And if you are not, first of all, just a general breakdown, 20% should just be on business development, and you'll have a hard time getting your administrative time below 10 to 20%, and the rest is client time. So if you're not overwhelmed with client work, you want to pour more into business development. And I would, what you're talking about at macro level sounds really interesting. And I will just throw out a word of caution, which may or may not apply to you, Graham, which is that it's very easy for consultants who are curious individuals and love to come up with new solutions and all of that to spend time doing offering development and solution development and looking into things as opposed to just winning business. And so don't allow yourself to get distracted by, or allow yourself to procrastinate behind the veil of, well, I'm going to investigate this new opportunity, which might be in a macro sense really big. Do that with your little bit of incremental time when your dance card is full. That's my suggestion, which may be exactly where you are. Okay. Looks like all the individual questions coming in. More questions, by all means, shoot them in. I'm just looking at the comments. We're gonna have a whole conversation around procurement at some point. Deidre, maybe we can hit one more. We have 3 minutes left. Let's do one more. We had a proposal into a client. They stripped out about 40% of the scope, then went ahead with the project. All right, well, that's good. It's a win. Now, unsurprisingly, they want help with some of the stuff they took out. I figure what they're asking for would add about 10% to the budget. All right, what should I say? All right, got it. So that's pretty funny, right? Pretty typical. Clients like, yeah, well, this is too much. We got to get the fee way down. Let's cut out all the scope. You're like, all right, you cut out the scope, and they're like, hey, I want that back. All right, so I'll give you some overall language, which is going to sound quite a lot like the response we just went through a couple of questions ago. Let me get there in a moment. First, let's just revisit the rule of tens, which is, and talk about where your focus should be. Because in this question, what John said, it would add 10% to budget. And I'm going to, that kind of gives me the sense that maybe he's thinking about budget in terms of hours. And just to be clear, there are two things to look at if you're dealing with potential scope creep. The value of the project and the effort required to create that value. And neither of those is budget, at least not directly. So let's talk about the rule of tens. The rule of tens says first that if the incremental work, the effort that the client is asking you to add on creates less than 10% incremental value to the project, you should politely let the client know it's a distraction from the core mission and turn it down, right? So if the effort is going to produce less than 10% incremental value, rule of 10 says no. And then the second part is assuming that the value is more than 10%. If your amount of effort is less than 10%, it's not a huge additional span, then just say yes. Or ask for an expansion in the project, depending on how much incremental value is created. If there's a ton of value created, you just want to lean towards accepting scope creep, because for a little bit of effort, you're making the client way, way better off. And if it's more than 10% extra effort, then you expand your current project, or you suggest a new project. John's example, he's right on the line. And so therefore he's probably going to say something, the best thing to say is something along the lines of, yeah, we can absolutely do that. That's a great idea. Much like we said before in negotiating, always agree with the client. Yeah, adding that stuff back's a really good idea. And it would, look, it's a modest increase in revenue, or not revenue, modest increase in fees. And that's it. Just matter of fact. We can do it. Increase in fees. And with that, we've managed to use up all our time. So thank you for spending 15 minutes with me. Before you go, a couple of notes. Deidre, can you put the Monday Live? So add Monday Live to your calendar if it's not there already. That way you come back here every week and you don't need a reminder. If you don't get my articles every week, davidafields.com/subscribe. That's it. Thank you for being here. Appreciate the questions. Appreciate your input. Have a fabulous week. Remember, consulting's about them, your clients and prospects, those folks on the other side of the table. So give them value and give them kindness. And hopefully Marie Isabel will be back next week, and we'll see you then. Take care.